Adam Milbourne, which wrestler will WWE sign in 2025?
Which wrestler will WWE sign in 2025? Great question. In fact, let me think about this for a second. It's Ricky Starks. I mean, he's halfway there, isn't he, basically? He's appeared at, the Rumble and WrestleMania, hanging out with Cody Rhodes. His mate's there, of course. There's been links about it throughout the year. I'm genuinely surprised he hasn't already left AEW. It's such a weird dynamic right now where I think the ice is melting somewhat in that frosty relationship he's got with Tony Khan, but I just think in 2025, whatever his contract status is, and I never know what's right and what's wrong with this, I just think it's best for everybody if he goes to WWE. I'm so excited to see what they do with someone like him, and it just feels like right now, we say this a lot with the amount of talent that AEW's got, there's just no real room for him to get to that upper echelon that he really should be getting into in 2025. And I just feel like, especially obviously with the connections he has now in WWE with Cody, and presumably with what WWE keep wanting to do with bringing this AEW talent in and showcasing what they can do with a Cody Rhodes or a Jade Cargill or even Paige, whoever it may be, I just think it's really promising for him in WWE in 2025. He's a phenomenal talent. He is a really exciting prospect. I think you're right, Sidge, when you say that he'd probably benefit from the sort of tighter promo style of WWE as well. But I would not be surprised in 2025 if he jumps to WWE and maybe even wins a title next year. Here's hoping.
Hear me out. And I'm not saying this because I lean AEW preference-wise, okay? There's a strategy to this pick. I think WWE signs Chris Jericho in 2025. And I will tell you why. On merit and on current form, would a wrestling promotion want this version of Chris Jericho? Not really. Okay. However, it's a constant PR battle. It's a constant war between WWE and AEW. Just because AEW is getting its ass kicked right now, that doesn't necessarily mean WWE still wouldn't want both cheeks completely obliterated. And if you look at the strategy here, okay, WWE signs Cody Rhodes, massive PR win. He becomes the biggest star since, or maybe even above John Cena's level, and then Cody Rhodes was just kind of a tweener, not doing much in AEW. We've booked him better than them. They suck, we rule. CM Punk cannot behave himself in AEW. In WWE, he's a model, employee, contractor, whatever. They don't know how to run a tight ship. They're the sloppy shop now. We can handle CM Punk. PR win. If WWE can get this version of Chris Jericho cooking at his best over a nice little Twilight run, look at how badly he's doing at time of recording in AEW. If they can get that guy relevant and over again, what optically would that say about All Elite Wrestling? And they want optically to knock their dick into the dirt. They'll sign Chris Jericho, not for him, but for the PR.
So the person I think WWE will sign in 2025 is, drumroll, Malachi Black. I know, it's pretty obvious, but he doesn't want to be in AEW, does he? He's not wanted to be there for years. I know we've not had any real concrete stuff that said that he's not come out and gone, I don't want to be here, but it's just the way he's acted, the way he's been, the way he's held himself within AEW, it just doesn't look like it's working at all, and I think he does just want to come home to Papa H. So give him his wish. Give him his wish when that contract expires, whatever it is, end of 2024, go into 2025, whatever it is. Don't take up the option years and keep him there against his will, whatever it is. Just let him go, man. Let him go and just see if he can offer something different in WWE right now. That gothic, supernatural vibe that he brings, it's a little bit different than all the Wyatt Six stuff. I think it would have a place in WWE and they could probably protect him, do all the bells and whistles, smoke and mirror stuff, just to make sure that he's not having to rely on being a bit of a super worker like he used to in NXT, because I don't think his body's there right now. He's had a hell of a run in this business. I think it's taken its toll on him, so I think he would be protected. I think it'd be really interesting seeing him in this landscape, in this main roster, compared to what we'd seen last time he was there with the old creepy billionaire in charge. I think he'd be in a better position now to succeed, and I wanted to see him succeed. I want to see him happy. He's just not seen that in AEW for a long old time. The House of Black stuff's been great. I love the House of Black, but I think him as an individual, as a singles package, it's never really clicked. He had a strong debut, but outside of that, outside of all the Cody Rhodes stuff, it's just felt like somebody who has an idea in his own mind of what he wants to do, and that's maybe not synced up with what other people have wanted. That's just speculation on my part, but that's what it feels like. And yeah, I think we should just bring it all to an end. Bring the experiment to an end. We had a go, we had a try. Let him now go to WWE and fly with his legs crossed in the air. That's an image.
Si! Nice to have you in this room. Si, who should WWE sign in 2025?
Right, I'm going to will this into existence. It's Simon Miller.
Yes!
And here's what... Yeah.
So I've gone for the star of perhaps the funniest moment in wrestling in January, that being Jordynne Grace. And the moment I'm talking about is when she entered the Royal Rumble. Total surprise, really awesome, really fun, really cool to see someone from Impact TNA coming over and all that stuff. But it was funny because she was wrestling so well and so fast and so quick and so adeptly that none of the other people in the ring could catch up. And after about 3 minutes, she visibly had to slow down so that the worst wrestlers didn't look completely outclassed. That's quite a mean way of saying that Jordynne Grace is really great at wrestling, but Jordynne Grace is really great at wrestling. I think as far as like the televisual universe goes, she's already got a foot in the door. She's been in NXT several times, including just a few weeks ago when she was in the big 10-woman tag. She is under a contract with Impact that I keep calling it Impact with TNA that expires I think early 2025, so the door is going to be open for her to negotiate with other companies and drive a nice big contract up. She's been a great wrestler for TNA. She's been a vanguard in that knockouts division. Recently, even this year, her stuff with Masha Slamovich has just penetrated all forms of match quality across pro wrestling, and that doesn't often happen with TNA. They're not the most buzzworthy company these days, but you know, if a match is getting hyped out of that company, it's usually Jordynne Grace or Mike Bailey or Josh Alexander these days. I think that for those reasons, she should just go to the Fed. She'd immediately be at worst like the third best wrestler on the roster. She, for me, is one of the best wrestlers in America that doesn't quite get the credit she deserves. I never really hear the name Jordynne Grace put up there with the best women's workers in particular. Like Io Sky gets mentioned a lot, and absolutely right. Your Bianca Belairs, name other people, whatever. Doesn't seem like Grace gets her flowers often enough. To me, that's a crying shame, and I think if she was on WWE TV and she was being watched by 2 million people every Monday night or Friday night, that would soon change.
Oh, the merch! The merch!
It's WhatCulture, boy!
Phil Chambers, you should WWE sign in 2025.
So I think I've said this in every single one of these videos for since we started doing these 5 or 6 years ago or whatever it is. But I'm gonna go with and go Simon Miller.
Yes!
And I know I've been wrong every time I've said it for the last 5 years or whatever. But it's gonna happen at some point. Come on, manifest this into life. I know I'm kind of torn because I don't want him to sign, because if he did, we'd be screwed. But it'd also be really nice for him, and he works really hard. So let's make this goddamn happen. Also, merch available right below this video now.
Oh,
buy some.
Hey!
Is the temperature up in here? No, it's just the Fed's boiling hot. And as a result of that, I struggled with this one. And I certainly don't really want to put a curse on WWE's perfect roster by bringing in anybody that maybe doesn't want it as much right now, or might kind of upset the dynamic of the locker room of just a bit of a golden era, a boom period. To that end, I've gone with Danhausen. Indeed. His run in AEW has stalled for reasons. However, I was kind of late to the Danhausen party. I felt like I was kind of one of the last guys actually to kind of understand his appeal until he arrived in AEW, and you really started to get his charm and his appeal, and certainly what he could do on the indie scene and all those sort of kind of WrestleCon type events where he could sell himself, if not necessarily sell his matches or sell what he could offer to a major promotion. I think WWE has kind of never been better for somebody like a Danhausen. There is a man that can merchandise himself amazingly well and market himself amazingly well. With the muscle of that company behind him, there are other levels to explore with what you can do with that character. Dare I say it, the one thing that AEW has had a little bit too much of this year as opposed to WWE is mascots. And you could have quite a fun mascot for something like an NXT or something like a Netflix version of WWE around Halloween season, things like that. There's ways to do corporate synergy with Danhausen, and he's kind of so charming that he makes it feel not that corporate. He's got one
powerful friend that is in WWE and has maintained his power over his first 12 months of the company. So it doesn't even seem that wild a shout, pending whatever his AEW deal is. Amazingly, I think in Danhausen, AEW have left money on the table, and WWE might as well scoop some of that.
The wrestler I think WWE will sign in 2025, as long as his TNA deal is up. I don't know the business logistics of it, so we don't want to throw too much out there, but is the one, the only, I believe, in Joseph Hendry. I mean, it would be mad if they didn't do it, right? I mean, I think people forget, people expect when there's sort of like a rupture in the internet social culture, which is something I've just made up and also sounds like the name of my first album, that it can continue forever. That's not how it works. Ironically, you have ups and downs. Not even ups and downs, it's just peaks and troughs. You can't keep that kind of viral wave going forever. It's not realistic. So, given what Joe was able to do in 2024, which is quite frankly ridiculous in the best possible way, because he's worked for it and busted his ass for so many years, I think WWE's not going to forget that. He also doesn't get enough credit for everything he does outside of that, his in-ring work, his promo work, his understanding of wrestling in general. And I don't think you can be on the indie scene for as long as he has and get the opportunities that he got out there too, unless you're, approaching things in the right way. So yeah, I would imagine that it happens relatively quickly. Not quickly, I mean, as soon as he's out of his TNA deal, I mean, maybe they even come to some kind of agreement. But again, to be one of the only guys ever that was simultaneously working at NXT and TNA for a prolonged period, you have to imagine that they've invested in him. And you had the whole Shawn Michaels thing, I believe, in Joe Hendry. Obviously, I'll never forgive him for whooping my ass at the TNA pay-per-view. But, maybe that was my fault too. Maybe I got a little bit ahead of myself. But either way, I'm super, super stoked for Joe, and he'd be my pick for 2025.
While it seems apparent that my close personal friend Ricky Starks will end up in WWE in the second half of 2025, and you would be an absolute idiot to bet against Jordynne Grace ending up in WWE in 2025, the wrestler I'm going to pop in the spotlight here is one Josh Alexander. Now, the Walking Weapon was keen to explore the free agency market when his TNA deal was up in early 2024, only for the company to trigger an extension that would keep Josh Alexander there for another year. Now, that deal is up in February 2025, and it would be no surprise to see Josh Alexander once again looking to test the free agent waters. If I'm WWE, signing Josh Alexander is a total no-brainer. I mean, if I'm any promotion out there, I am doing my absolute best to sign the fella. He's just absolutely great. The dude is so talented, putting on some absolute bangers over the past few years. Most notably, the past 12 months or so, you've had the likes of Speedball Mike Bailey, Konosuke Takeshita, Moose, Nick Nemeth, Steve Macklin, big old Alex Hammerstone, a fantastic match with Mike Santana, House of Glory, and of course there was the pair of matches against Will Ospreay at the end of 2023 and into 2024. So, I mean, some WWE fans may not be familiar with Josh Alexander, but it's one of those talents where their ability in the ring and out the ring means he's someone who could realistically, you could drop him onto Raw or SmackDown and he'd soon get himself over just with his work alone. Of course, there is a certain Ethan Page in NXT these days, with Ethan Page and Josh Alexander, long-time tag team partners as the North, and the Monster Mafia, of course. So there's also the temptation to, you can reform the North or you can have them as rivals. AEW, yes, they will surely have interest in Josh Alexander, but you have to remember as well that AEW famously passed on Josh Alexander a few years ago as a singles talent. They had talks, they seemed to go okay, but AEW had no interest in bringing him in as a singles. I mean, will that stance have changed? You'd like to think so if you're AEW. But even if it has, if you're Josh Alexander and you're thinking, well, they passed on me before, so, hey, tough. I don't know, we'll see. But with Josh Alexander recently announcing he'll no longer be doing independent dates, he's worked a bunch of indies, loads of indies outside of TNA in the past couple of years. But that's led to some people speculating that, that's an indicator that he's going to WWE. Because, of course, AEW is very open to talent working the indies. Wherever he ends up, though, Josh Alexander is legit one of the best bell-to-bell wrestlers on the planet these days. And for me, I am absolutely going with him winding up in WWE at some point in 2025.